Welcome back to Comics Are Awesome, where we bring you everything awesome in comics. Let me ask you a question. Who is your favorite Marvel or DC character? Yeah? You're all wrong. The correct answer is King Shark. He's a shark.
But I've heard a ton of different responses to this question over the years, and while I like mainstream characters like Superman or Iron Man, I'm always more fascinated when someone gives the answer of someone who is less iconic. The underdogs, who maybe don't get their spotlight as often, but still manage to find someone that connects to them. As well as those who've had fans lash out them, perhaps unfairly.
So today I present to you my top 10 superhero underdogs.
With speed of lightning, roar of thunder, fighting all who rob or plunder. Underdog, underdog, underdog.
Just to be clear, I'm only going to be focusing on Marvel and DC characters here. That isn't to say there aren't great indie superheroes out there. There really are, but I'm focusing in more on the guys who are in the mainstream but shoved aside, as opposed to the indie publishers who are just completely overlooked. With that in mind, let's get started.
Number 10. Ricochet.
Wow, first entry, and I've lost any chance of passing this off as an objective list.
Everyone has at least one character like this on their list. Someone who, when examined in the light of day, is hard to justify. But this is my list, damn it! Back in the 90s, Spider-Man had a story called Identity Crisis that had public opinion of Spider-Man at its lowest point when he was framed for murder. To prove his innocence, he created not one, but 4 separate identities to help clear his name. One of these was Ricochet. After Spider-Man's name was cleared, the costumes wound up in the hands of 4 college students in a comic called Slingers. One of these kids, Johnny Gallo, was a mutant who had heightened reflexes and agility and a danger sense similar to Spidey's spider sense, as well as having throwing discs that he could toss as a weapon. Johnny was an interesting character because he's outwardly the joker of the group, but inwardly he was self-conscious of being a mutant, hiding it not only from his friends and family, but his teammates as well. While most superheroes are accepting of others, it's easy to see why he would be reluctant to open up to a group of strangers he just met.
Not that I would be ashamed about anything in my life.
Hey, JD.
Girl, hey T-Bell. What's going on?
What you doing?
You know, just working on my, my sports show. Yeah, me and sports, I love those sporty sports, sportsness.
Hun, you know I've seen your show, right?
I don't know what you're talking about. You know me, always loving sports and everything.
Okay, I'm gonna go now. Oh, Spaz!
Sports!
Slingers only lasted a year before canceling, and the characters have been mostly forgotten. Ricochet popped up in a few issues of Runaways, a book I've already reviewed here, and a spin-off miniseries called Loners, and recently popped up in a non-speaking cameo of Avengers Academy. But considering how rare mutants are supposed to be nowadays, it seems odd that one of the few remaining is largely ignored. Number 9. The Martian Manhunter. I put this one near the end of the list because he does have fans and more or less has had a prominent place in the Justice League throughout most of its life, but man, does John Jones just not get the respect he deserves. As one of the founding members of the Justice League, and someone who should be an equal match for Superman, he should be one of the big guns, perhaps even surpassing him. But he's often forgotten about. Part of that is because of his nature. As the last surviving Green Martian, he's a bit more withdrawn. Unlike Superman, he wasn't raised here, he's a stranger in a strange land, so he tends to be a bit more quiet and withdrawn. But reading some of the classic Justice League stories, it's pretty clear he's the soul of the team. Someone who was there to listen to a problem after Superman flies away back to the Metropolis. If you can't find it, try to track down some of the Martian Manhunter series by John Strander. It fills in some of the gaps in his backstory that makes him seem far more important than he typically is regarded as. Number 8. Gambit.
I know what you're thinking. Gambit has a huge following, right? Well, yes, but he also has a kind of notable anti-following as well.
I got into comics as a result of the 90s animated series, and pretty much everyone who saw that cartoon thought Gambit was the shit. His power was unique, he was kind of dark and mysterious, he used playing cards as a signature weapon, and he had a sexy Cajun accent that I wish I was cool enough to pull off.
I like solitaire, okay? Unless I got someone to play with.
Plus the Gambit rogue shippers. Oh dear lord, the shippers. But right about the time I started getting to internet message boards, I discovered that a rather vocal population that wanted nothing to do with him, claiming him as a poster child of 90s excess. The pink and blue body armor, the cliché trench coat, cliché mysterious past that proved to be kind of lame, and there were some valid points there, especially the pink armor bit. But I don't care. As someone who got into X-Men in the 90s, he's a classic X-Man to me, and thus I say screw the haters, Gambit is awesome. Number 7. The Invisible Woman. Oh, irony. Yes, I think the Invisible Woman is an overlooked character. You see, everyone adores the lovable hothead Johnny and gruff Ben and the genius leader Reed. Wait, did I say leader? Well, you see, even though Reed is leader on paper, I think of Susan as a true leader. Reed is too easily distracted, and while he can come up with brilliant solutions to problems, he often doesn't understand the morale of his team, especially Ben, who often gets depressed over his appearance. Susan is probably the better leader. She's compassionate, but not in a willowy, I'm the girl role. She truly cares for her family. But she also possesses a steely resolve that would make me worried to cross her. So I say pay a little bit more attention to the girl who you can't see. Number 6. Batgirl. Stephanie Brown. I could have flipped a coin whether or not to include Stephanie or Cassandra Cain on this list, as both of them have had a rough go of it in the last few years, but I've read a few more stories with Stephanie, and I think Cassandra has a bit more of a fan base. But both could qualify for this list. Stephanie Brown became known to the world in the pages of Robin as Spoiler.
That is to say, her codename is Spoiler, not to say that her codename is a spoiler, though you could make the argument that her real name is a spoiler because the bad guys like to find her and shoot her in the face and spoil her life, though Rosebud is a slut.
Spoiler eventually dated Tim Drake, the then current Robin, and was trained by Batman to become the fourth Robin when Tim wasn't available. And then things went bad. Stephanie was tortured and eventually killed by the murderous Black Mask and refused medical assistance by an ally of Batman to make a point. This was later retconned as her having been put into hiding, but only after several years of her being presumed dead and given no memorial, unlike Jason Todd. But Stephanie was eventually given the blessing of both previous Batgirls, Cassandra Cain and Barbara Gordon, and given her own series as the new Batgirl. And it was fantastic. I will likely cover this book in a future episode of Comics Are Awesome, but seriously, this was an excellent comic about a young woman who tries to balance her life as a crime fighter and a college student. It was pure fun. Of course, there were fans who crumbled because Cassandra Cain had her own following, but it did get a fair amount of critical praise. But then, editorial rebooted the DC Universe, Barbara Gordon took the role back, and Stephanie is not yet to be seen since. Thanks, DC. Thanks for giving me a character I can truly enjoy, only to snatch her away from me. Number 5. Green Lantern, Kyle Rayner. This one is probably obvious to anyone who's been reading comics for a while. Kyle Rayner was the fourth human ever to become a Green Lantern, but the first that I know of that had an organization dedicated to getting rid of him. You see, in the mid-90s, it became kind of a thing to replace big-name heroes with newer models in order to garner attention. Most of these were temporary, either by plan or by reader demand, but none of them were more controversial than Kyle Rayner replacing Hal Jordan. This seems to have less to do with Kyle and more with the fact that the writers made Hal go crazy, decimate the Green Lantern Corps, and try to become a godlike figure in order to make room for Kyle to take his place. So was born Heat, Hal's Emerald Attack Team, a real-life fan group that wrote countless letters, flamed countless online bulletin boards and forums in order to, be annoying trolls, I guess? I mean, I agree that making Hal a bad guy did kind of come out of nowhere, but people hated Kyle just for the association. But when I got into comics, Kyle was the Green Lantern, and as the newbie on the JLA, he really got to shine as the guy who felt constantly in over his head, but never letting it stop to get him from doing what needed to be done. Also, he was far more imaginative with his ring, creating all sorts of crazy constructs based on his ability as an artist versus Hal, who would just make giant fists. Since then, though, Hal and the Corps have returned, and while Kyle luckily hasn't been bumped off to make room for him, not a lot has been done with him. Though to be fair, he currently is the lead character in Green Lantern New Guardians, so there is something to be said for that, but it seems like Kyle is destined to always be in the shadow of Hal. Number 4. Elongated Man. There have been plenty of stretchy superheroes. Mr. Fantastic, Plastic Man, Skin, Elastic Girl, but what sets Ralph Dibny apart from the rest, besides the ridiculous mouthful of a name, is the man, not the power. Elongated Man, perhaps the only superhero to getting his power through a drinking soda, should be recognized for two things. As a great detective on par with Batman, and a loving husband. Seriously, his stretching abilities are great, but Ralph is a wickedly smart man, and has a nose for finding clues. And unlike most Silver Age superheroes, he quickly made his secret identity public and married his girlfriend, Sue. Ralph and Sue were a great couple. Despite her not having powers, she was often treated as Ralph's equal by the Justice League. Sadly, Sue was killed off in the Brad Meltzer written Identity Crisis, and Ralph himself would only unite with her again when he was killed off in DC's original 52 event. While I think it's unfortunate that they died, I do think these books did raise their public awareness amongst comic fans, even if it wasn't not nearly enough, and it was far too late. Number 3. Ant-Man and the Wasp.
Oh man. These two are a potential landmine just waiting to go off because of... yeah.
I'll get to that in a second. Hank Pym and Janet Van Dyne are another notable couple in comics, though not nearly in the same fashion as Ralph and Sue. They are probably best known as founding members of the Avengers, but while Thor, Hulk, and Iron Man all later had their own success in their own titles, Hank and Jan never quite managed to make an impact other than, well, that. They mostly have served as regular Avengers. I'm guessing it's because the shrinking powers don't seem that interesting, as much as a souped-up suit of armor or becoming a green rage monster. Even though Hank, who, while brilliant, is also filled with self-doubt, would constantly play with his identity, becoming Giant Man, Goliath, Yellow Jacket, just plain old Dr. Pym, and even calling himself the Wasp for a time, nothing really seemed to make him stick out to fans. And Jan just seemed to be regulated to the girlfriend role, despite serving as the Avengers team leader, and in fact, many consider her one of the best leaders to ever serve, right after Captain America. But all they can remember is the fact that they get small... Oh, and that one time Hank had a mental breakdown and slapped Jan. Number 2. Robin. Any of them. Ah, Robin. Beloved by many and yet the butt of so many more bad jokes. Robin, in my mind, serves as Batman's humanity, a reminder of his innocence that he left behind when his parents died. Without Robin, it's often easy for Bruce to go further and further into the darkness of his own soul.
And despite this, everyone seems to think of Robin as that boy in his underwear that the eccentric billionaire keeps in his cave.
Seriously, this joke got old before I got out of middle school. Look, I will concede that back in the day, Robin was about as much of a nuisance as he was actually any help, and that his costume was a bit garish, and yeah, green underwear is pretty questionable. But while I love the Adam West TV series, Robin has become more than just a tag-along spouting lame one-liners.
Holy ravioli!
Dick Grayson has become the representative of Bruce's lost innocence and is the ultimate free spirit. Jason Todd became a martyr, reminder that Batman's war on crime comes at a cost. Tim Drake shows a youth who has unlimited potential, someone who could even exceed Batman one day. Damian Wayne is highly skilled in combat and tactics but never developed social skills, and could be easily seen as what Bruce may become if he doesn't hold on to his humanity. They're all fascinating characters. Also, this kid got to hit this on a regular basis, so consider that next time you make a dumb joke. Number 1. Batman.
Ah, yes, Batman. Truly an underappreciated character. You may have heard me mention him a couple times in this list, but really he doesn't. Of course it's Aquaman!
Number 1. Aquaman. Could this one be any more obvious? Seriously, Aquaman is the butt of so many jokes.
My ability to talk with fish is of no help, Wonder Woman.
Aquaman swimming around. Hi, fish. Hi, Aquaman. Have you seen anything unusual under the water? Hi, Aquaman.
That it rivals your average plumber. We've all heard it before. He talks to fishes, he breathes underwater, and is utterly useless in most Justice League missions unless it happens to take place at sea. But that's wrong. I mean, yes, he talks, or at least can control sea life, but at least once he was able to disable an alien by tapping into the part of his brain inherited by his marine ancestors and causing a seizure. And while he's not at Superman level, he's incredibly tough and strong in order to survive the crushing ocean depths. So if you were to take him out of the water, he's still a tough customer, more than, say, Green Arrow if you took away his bow. But one of the most overlooked powers is perhaps one of the simplest. He's a king. People forget that as the king of the ocean, he rules over 2/3 of the planet. Sure, riding in on a whale is impressive, but it's even more impressive when he's followed by an infantry of Atlanteans. Yeah, even Batman can't claim that one.
Tell the surface dwellers to respect the sovereignty of my seas, or we'll return and finish what we've started. We'll be watching.
I mean, look, Superman doesn't even stop him. So maybe you should think twice before you throw around your six-pack ring next time in the ocean, huh?
But that's just my opinion. There's no way I could do an exhaustive list of all the great underappreciated superhero characters out there. So do me a favor and leave me a comment and let me know who your favorite underdog is, and I'll see you next time. Until then, remember, comics are awesome and we're gonna get the word out.
Sitting in the Hall of Justice, well, is there justice after all? 'Cause after all, when you discuss us, I am the last name you recall. So he might sell a few more comics, and soberly he saves the world. But I've had 7 gin and tonics, and I want you to be my girl. I can take you to Atlantis and makes that cave look like a hole. We'll tie one on the Titanic. Vicky Vale, my heart you stole.
Outrageous!